Boom shakalaka. It's Michael Langston, everybody. I'm Aslan Hajivandi. Thanks for being here for the Warchant.com recruiting chat. It will go off smoother than my intro, I promise you, because Michael's here. He's got all the news that you want and need. You should be a subscriber to Warchant.com. You'd probably know about a lot of this sort of stuff, but it's always over on the premium recruiting board, so go enjoy that. Let everybody know about Warchant.com. And then, you don't have to call your friends and text them. That would take a lot of work, and we don't want you to have to do all that. You can just do one simple thing to let people out there know about this video. And what is that, Michael?
Oh, it's always hit the like button. We always love that. I say it numerous times, and I don't mind repeating it. It helps us really promote everything we're doing. It's an exciting time right there. There's a lot going on. Visitors this weekend, visitors last weekend, the transfer portal. Summer camp is coming up for the football team, so a lot of recruiting stuff coming up in June with camp. So it's definitely it's the main time where we just want you kind of help us promote it, and it's free, and just hit the like button for us, guys.
Let's get to it. Sometimes we like to go in chronological order, but then there's something called being a pillar that gets to the front of the line, y'all. James B. Post this in here. I was wondering, anybody know the latest on Jalen Key? That's who we are looking at for safety, Michael Langston.
Yeah, it's the UAB defensive back transfer. Certainly a very coveted guy. Officially visited FSU last weekend, then visited Alabama for an official visit. I think it's between those two teams. I kind of go, not to play devil's advocate, I kind of really go back and forth. It's like yesterday I felt like Alabama, and then today, talking to a few people, it's really it could go either way. I don't want to tell you. I don't think a decision has been made. I think FSU did a really good job, but it's also still Nick Saban. They do a really good job with defensive backs over there. But I think what's attracting and making it difficult is just the fit of how he fits into FSU. He knows he feels comfortable that he can come right in there, make a play, and he understands where they're going as a program. And that's also a school that he's been around a lot. A lot of his life, being from Quincy, Florida, playing at Gadsden County, and also playing at Godby. So it's a tough pick between the two, and I think he goes back and forth. I do not think he's informed any staff of a decision, so I'm hoping by tonight I should have a feel for it. He's likely going to decide, from what I hear. Our own Matt Lassier got up with him last night and said the feeling was that he was going to decide by Friday. So could know something by Friday. I think there's certainly a solid chance, but that's kind of my feelings at this moment of kind of where FSU sits in that one. I'm hoping to get some finality to this one as far as which way it could go, because right now it like I said, it goes both ways. I was ready to tell you guys, hey, you know what, it's probably looking like Alabama, and then got some stuff today, so we're still waiting, and certainly a guy that's coveted in a lot of ways, both from the NIL perspective and also from the field and just what he would bring to this roster. So the waiting game continues until I can find out more.
If this kid was from Stockbridge, Georgia, he'd be all Alabama, wouldn't he?
Yes, I would agree with that. I think there's a lot of ties. I mean, Corey Fuller was his former coach. But I think also the job that FSU did on that official visit was really good. Like it was really it was able to connect and resonate with Jalen in a way that I don't think any visit has done. So then at the same time, nobody has done a better job with defensive backs lately than Alabama when you look at what they do. Or I would say nobody, but they're one of the best. So that makes this really challenging. And I think it goes back and forth.
If he had more than 1 year left, I'd go I'd say 60-40 Florida State.
Yeah.
But my feeling is 60-40 Alabama right now, because I think you got 1 year, man. It'd be great to come back home for that one last ride, but
right.
You got one last year you need to maximize, and I just love Adam Fuller. I know a lot of you don't, but I love Adam Fuller. But it's man, Nick's saying hey, I got you. It's
I would say it's even a narrow margin than that, but I would probably say slightly Alabama. But I go back and forth, man. It's just I would love to tell you guys it's one side or the other because I check on this every hour, but I can't do that yet. But I tell you, Aslan's one, I could see that. So I'd say slightly, But again, this thing, there's no decision being made yet. He's digesting and putting this stuff together and still figuring it out. But certainly, there's a lot of advantage that FSU has, and then there's advantages that Alabama has as far as the sustained product. And as Aslan mentioned, 1 year, so you got to make sure you do it right, and that goes twofold both ways. You can have 1 year and say, you know what, I got to make sure I get this right too, where I'm gonna play, where I'm gonna go. If I go to Alabama, I got to make sure I know I'm gonna play. Or with FSU, I think there's certainly a spot. So it goes twofold, and that's why I have to break down all this stuff and figure it out and find out which way it's going to go. But I think it's close. I think it's close, and I think it could go either way.
So what's the timeline on this again, Michael, in terms of last week he was in Tallahassee, but before he came to Tallahassee, he was in Oxford and Tuscaloosa, but unofficially?
Right,
Okay.
correct,
And then he has been on an official visit in Tuscaloosa Monday and Tuesday.
correct.
Okay. So now this is like, all right, Wednesday decompress, Thursday maybe get your final answer ready, and then and Friday, as Matt Lassier is reported, likely to be decision day.
Right, and that's what I'm expecting. That's why I feel like I'll know something either late tonight or sometime the following day. I have a feeling I'll know the pulse on which way this is going, but I kind of want to give people a grasp of why this is going back and forth. There's angles that work for both people.
So you agree with this Noel fan, 1893. He's from Tallahassee. He was from Quincy. Corey Fuller was his head coach, his high school head coach. If we can't pull him, it would be a big disappointment, in my opinion.
You're going against Alabama, no fan.
Come on,
it's like you're going to get Nick Saban. You know how many guys he's put in the NFL. You can't just base it on where a kid's from to success rate. I don't think FSU's a failure just because or a disappointment because it will be a big disappointment because he's a great player and he certainly will help FSU a lot. But I think we also got to be fair in knowing you're going against. This isn't like you're going against Vanderbilt, like you're going against Alabama, the cream of the crop. And there's nothing against Alabama or Vanderbilt. That's a great school.
Well, there is,
But
though, the football team.
Alabama is Alabama. Alabama has been the most consistent product, I would say, in the last 10 years. You agree
15,
with that, Aslan?
15.
Yeah.
I mean, go back 15.
I mean, they are solid, and at defensive backs, they do a great job. I mean, the proof's in the pudding of guys they've done. So, come on, it's just relax, decompress. They're going to get somebody safety. Obviously, they hope it's Jalen Key, and we'll wait and see how it materializes. And like I said, I hope I find out. I'll know something, by tomorrow, late tonight.
I shouldn't have put this on the screen and put this into the world. Ease says that he's scared Akeem Dent would transfer out since he's a graduate and he can do that if they were to land Key because, the portal is still open if you're a grad transfer, which brings us to Kevin Hickson's question, Michael, about, okay, so what's the backup plan? Apparently, I think a new name has surfaced.
I mean, they have several guys. I think your own Matt Lassier put it on our site earlier today. About Louisiana safety. I got to look it up, guys, because this is mainly Matt's baby as far as him doing this today. But certainly a guy that
Cam Pettisclo.
Okay.
My Cajun is not all that great. My French is not all that great, but I think it's Cam Pettisclo.
Yeah, so he's another safety, as Matt pointed out in his update. One of the second highest graded safeties in the country. Certainly, you also the size is not quite there as much with him compared to a guy like Jalen Key, but certainly a very productive guy. A guy that I also hear Alabama's involved with. That tells you that decision with Key is not a certain thing for Alabama. It's not like they think it's a layup and it's locked down. So that's another guy that I think they're involved with, from what I can tell. So definitely going to be a guy that I expect FSU to have ties with. Certainly, kick the tires on, look into, and see if the fit is there, like it was with Jalen. So that's another one. Demetrius Hill out of FIU is another one that I've listed that I'm kind of monitoring. So they have several backup plans. They're keeping it quiet about who the other options are because I don't think they want it out there like, hey, we're also involved with this guy until a decision process happens with Key, but I will reveal some names once that process is finished, whether FSU gets them or not. But those are a few guys to keep in mind.
Safe to say they want another safety, Michael.
Yes, I think they're going to get a safety. So whether it's Key or somebody else, I do think they'll add a safety in this class. I think it's very important to them. It's the most vital position I think that they need to add for this team, because they need a productive, experienced guy, NFL type of player that can help them, kind of lead a lot of these young guys.
Optimus Climb, clever name. Do you think Kalen's still top of the board for them when it comes to a safety target? Or do you think this young man from Louisiana might be that much more coveted because he was graded higher by PFF, whatever that means for you folks?
I think Jalen's the top guy from everything I picked up. Key, I think, the guy. But I think that's the focus. But this is the other one where it's kind of similar to the wide receiver position, which I'll touch on in a few minutes, that there's another top guy besides Keon Coleman, but Keon is the top prospect. So that's something, to keep an eye on. Cam's great. That guy's great. But at the same time, you look very disingenuous if you have a guy pop in the portal and you spend all this time on this guy, and this guy pops in, and then you all of a sudden jump right away to this to just move on to somebody else. Plus, I just think Key is one of the most coveted safeties around the country. If you look at all the teams that are involved, that were trying to get involved, like Ohio State, Oregon, Oklahoma, all these teams, Alabama, all these teams been trying to get involved. So I think Key is still the guy. So I don't think Cam entering the portal really changes that. And certainly, I think with FSU, they're very genuine and direct about their approach. So when they go after a guy, they go after him. So that's then their focus.
I mean, I like that sentiment, but I don't know, man. Like if somebody hops in the portal that I think is better than the guy that I've been wooing, I'm sorry, man. Like again, I'm not the head football coach. I'd jump on them, but I guess that's a pretty good point that maybe some of us don't think about, is that they have invested all this time in a player that, so as soon as somebody else just shows up, they're not going to instantly put this guy on the back burner and shift all their attention.
I was more referring to somebody that's close, not somebody that's like a clear better player than him. So I'm talking about, these guys are both close. They're both really good players. So you're not going to just pass on a guy that it's been your most coveted guy. But certainly they're definitely interested. They're showing interest. They're going through the early, checking on background and all this stuff, research, the kind of fit that he would be, and then also just how he feels about FSU. What is his goal? That's the other thing we don't talk about. It's like, what are the players wanting to get out of this relationship, whether they end up. So I think that's a lot of stuff that they're looking into with Cam, and that's probably in the early processes. So you would think Florida would be involved, since he plays at Billy Napier's old school that he was at, but we'll see. But I definitely think Florida State will certainly be intrigued and look into this one with Cam outside of Key too. So as they wait for the Key decision.
Jeremy Wells, Michael, how are we looking for Keon Coleman?
Yeah, I just covered Brandon, so I know you asked that question earlier. Keon's a little more, I would probably say, complex, because I don't like with Key. I think the factors are pretty clear. I think with Keon, it's more what the receivers have done, what the development has done at receiver, who's done the best job of that, what place does he fit the best at. I think NIL is also going to be a factor where he wants something nice, because we're talking about a 1-year player that's probably going to be off to the NFL after this year, because Keon's very productive at a top, talented school like Michigan State. So I think that's another one that's close with Ole Miss and FSU. For people that didn't follow, officially visited FSU, then went over to Ole Miss for official visit. I don't think there might be one more visit. Maybe Louisville is the team I've heard a lot about as far as that team he could visit, but this is another one that I think is tight, and I think it really just turns to what perspective you look at of what's the most important to Keon. Is it the offense? Is it connection with the coaches, or is NIL going to lead more of the way, or is it going to be who's been a little more consistent with receivers, compared to FSU and Ole Miss? We know FSU did really well last year. They did a great job with these guys that came in. FSU did a phenomenal job over the weekend. They had Jordan Travis. They had Johnny Wilson around him. A lot of other players. It wasn't just those two. There was a ton of players that were around him. They pitched it perfectly. They nailed it. FSU is the more likely to be good next year. I think FSU, the likelihood of being in the top 10 and being a prestigious program is also good. And I think the other thing is Ole Miss is lacking more than what FSU is lacking at receiver. So I think with Keon with FSU, that's the missing piece. With Ole Miss, he could be the leader of what they have. So I think they're kind of wanting to get some big time guy to finish it off. And so I think it really just matters on what turns out to be the most important. This is another one that for me is too close to call. That I feel like by the weekend I'll have a pretty good gauge. As far as where this is teetering, where this is going. I know FSU felt good going into that Ole Miss visit, but Ole Miss also feels good of they getting them on campus last. So it kind of we have to wait and see once he sits back and rehashes and sees what's the most important thing. If it is the best product and best team on the field, you have to like FSU's chances, because the chances of them being good are higher than what Ole Miss chances are. So that's what I'm kind of waiting on. So I think it's gonna be another tight one, guys.
2-team battle. So, I mean, I guess Louisville might be out. So LSU's not a factor in this recruitment
I
right
have not
now?
heard anything about LSU in there.
All right.
The only team I've heard frequently is Louisville, and then FSU and Ole Miss. Those have been the teams that I've heard, in the last 48 hours, checking my phone like a billion times. Those are the teams that I've heard. But it's also there's a caveat to this where there's another guy lingering in the shadows for FSU, and that's the guy Franklin out of UTSA. Um, I checked and was told, like, I think I would say on Tuesday evening, that if they weren't able to get Coleman, that FSU side feels some confidence that they can get this done with Franklin. That they feel like they've done the work behind the scenes and they've done work with communication relationship, that's a guy, like, they feel like there's some confidence. Doesn't mean they're going to land them, but there's something about it that whether they feel like, hey, we got a shot, to get this one. So keep that in mind. I would not be surprised if you see Zach visit FSU either this weekend or during the week, and that something gets set up. But I think obviously they're waiting to see what Keon does. But I think regardless, I think he's still going to probably visit. Whether they're not going to just sit there and wait around like, oh, when are you going to make a decision? They're going to certainly move forward and certainly give themselves options. But Franklin's definitely the one to watch. I have not heard another receiver. Those two receivers have been the main receivers I've heard. So if they do get a receiver, I think it's going to be one of those two. And I would just keep that guy in mind, through this process, and just because you hear he's visiting doesn't mean, like, unless I'm telling you, like, hey, I hear like the decision's likely, looks like it's going to be somewhere else besides FSU, then you could lead into it. But I was told, like, FSU is going to make sure they give themselves options if the receiver checks off what they're looking for.
Does it mean anything that, they've gone after Coleman to the degree that they've had him on campus here already versus
Yeah.
Franklin in terms of maybe what they value out of these two guys?
I just think with Keon, he gives them a different aspect that they don't have, and that's kind of what they're looking for. He's a physical guy, really good high point ball type of player. Franklin's probably a better route runner and quicker and more explosive, probably faster. So it's kind of just what you prefer. But I think with this system, I think FSU feels like they have a few guys that can do that. I think what Keon gives is just something they don't have a lot of just really physical guys that just can do so many things when the ball's in the air.
All right, very well. Lots to keep
Yep.
an eye on here. Michael doing it, appreciating it. Now, let me see here. There's somebody that I wanted to thanked us. He put a thumbs up in his message. I hope he actually hit the thumbs up to like the video though. That's
Okay.
really gotta
Yeah,
be.
definitely hit the like button when you do that. But yeah, and then the two, just with the portal, the rest of the portal, I do feel like there's going to be a linebacker visit either this weekend or I was told the following weekend. So that's something to watch, coming up in May, because I think that's something they would like to address if they find the right guy and go from there. So that's something to keep in mind. I have not heard about an edge guy yet as far as a visit being set up. It's mainly been these two positions of safety and receiver that I've heard the most, but I have heard a little bit, and it's picked up, as the days have gone on of a linebacker, eventually visiting FSU. I've heard any specific names for sure, but that's just something that you guys to keep an eye on. So I do think linebacker is another place that they would like to, get some experience in on that roster.
Chris asks, "How's FSU doing with Jordan Seaton, Michael?"
They're in the picture. Obviously, there's work to do because I think schools like Ohio State. I think Florida's done a good job. I think Michigan has as well. He's going to officially visit FSU, so they're very much in the picture. But I think it's a guy where, yeah, the official visit's good, but I think a follow up visit to that official visit is certainly would put them in a chance where they can really threaten the recruitment. So they're in the picture, but I think there's still work to do on that follow up visit to really nail down their position in the pecking order in this recruitment.
How high on the board do you think this guy is? I
He's
mean,
pretty high. I mean,
cast that
I
far. I
would
mean,
put him. I think he would be a take at this point from everything I've heard. So it's definitely somebody they want and covet. So he's a guy that really they're going to have to make their move when they get an official visit, and certainly and make waves then. But they're in the picture. They're in the running. They're in the middle of those a lot of those teams. But as far as a top tier favorite, I think there's still a little work to do there.
last time we did this show, someone was asking Michael about his thoughts on Dylan Stevenson, and he's like, "Yeah, he was RPM'd at Miami, but he's like, I don't believe that." Then Chad Simmons decides to come off the top rope today.
Yeah.
Drop a little nugget on that. So, folks wondering about Dylan Stevenson, what do you think has changed here recently, Michael? Or can you maybe talk a little bit more about what's made you feel good about him and Florida State all this whole time?
I don't think really much has changed. I think people are just picking up on it. I felt like if you do your research on this recruitment, that despite Miami, he's been to FSU like 6 or 7 times. It felt like FSU's recruiting the hardest. It felt like Coach JP was doing the best job recruiting him. They were on him the longest, and he feels a comfort and an ease when he's at FSU. You see a comfort. You see a more relaxed guy where all the other visits is kind of like, hey, it's fun, it's exciting, but with FSU, it seems like almost like he's home or he's much more relaxed and could be himself, as Dylan said to us when he visited FSU the last time. I think he's like, I can be myself and I can do what I want to do. Certainly, this is probably one of the top three defensive ends that they've wanted in this class. They've certainly made a push for him, and Columbus is not an easy school to get kids out of. It. A lot of kids from there go to Miami or other places. It's been a while since FSU's got a kid from Columbus, so it's certainly not easy, but certainly a guy they've coveted. Now there's probably a few other guys that I like a little higher on the board, like LJ McCray, Cameron Franklin out of the Mississippi area. So, but this is the one that they've been very high on. They have not let up. They've made it clear this is guys a priority. I am not surprised because I told people after that FSU visit, I really felt like FSU was the team that was trending in the best direction because I felt like there was a different body language or feeling when you listen to Dylan talk about FSU. It was much more relaxed and to like this is a place where I can just relax and be myself. And I have to see something or see this. I think when Dylan visits, he doesn't really have to see anything when it comes to FSU. I think it's just about being around people that the bond is there, and the bond is like real and genuine. And I think that's the big factor in this one, that from the start FSU's been real and genuine. Sure, they love the skill set, they love the things he can do, the way he can get after the pass rusher, but I think it's also I think you got if you read into the story we did on that day, he said like, we need a defensive recruit. We have Luke, we have Cam on the offensive side. We need. I mean, I don't usually take the we from a recruit that isn't committed, but I thought that was kind of interesting that he mentioned how they want a defensive guy to kind of lead the charge for the defensive class. So I think that was pretty fairly telling to me when he was doing that. It tells you certainly how highly interested he is, and then also I think the other thing is the amount of communication he has with the FSU recruits. A lot of FSU commits talk with him. I know Luke talks with him. I know a lot of these guys talk with him. So this isn't like something that I think just popped on the radar. Sure, it's the first RPM pick, but I think most of the FSU commits and recruits felt like this was a possibility, and this is one that they just had to stay on and keep it going. And certainly now they have all the momentum in this recruitment. It looks pretty good so far.
How about the elite of the elite? How about the 5-star plus guys? Naron wondering, any chance KJ Bolden comes back to Tallahassee over the summer?
He's mentioned that he's going to take an official visit, but he also, I think, released in the last few days a top 4, and FSU wasn't in that 4. So there's certainly a lot of work, it seems, to be done if he does take that official visit like he's planning to do. He's telling me, he keeps telling me, I'm definitely taking that official visit to FSU, but I think they're a dark horse in that race. They're going to have to, they got some work to do if they want to get back up there for KJ.
Following up on what Michael was saying, though, Bolden did tweet out later in the week, a few days ago, that that was not my top 5, guys. I'm still open to other schools.
Okay,
So
there you go.
there you go.
Yeah,
So
so but when
safe line.
somebody tweets just 4 teams, it makes you think like those are the 4 teams, at least on his mind
Right.
currently. I get you. I feel you, KJ. I feel you, dude. But either way, I do think he'll get an official visit. I do think there's work to do, but I've seen this happen plenty of times where guys have a favorite in mind, but then they go officially visit, and it's just different. It's a different feeling and it's a different vibe. And certainly, I think Georgia's still the leader, but I think FSU can do it. But there is work to do, and certainly you got to get up there and really make a strong impression on that and that on that push.
Logan Falk wants he wants some guys to commit
Okay.
on the offensive line.
So do
Jason
I. It makes my
Zampanella.
job easier. It makes my job easier, Logan, when they commit. So I think Zandamel is going to do it around July, from what I hear. I think he's got an official visit to FSU in June, and then I think he'll pop after that. Daniels, I think probably sometime. He told us he was going to push it to December, but I think he could also happen at any moment. So I think both of them could happen anytime. I think Zandamel is the one that I feel very confident that you'll get something in the summer as far as popping. But either way, I feel really good about FSU's chances for both of these guys.
What are the numbers at offensive line, do you think, Michael, in terms of what they want, what they're going to likely take?
Well, I think they want 2 centers, and then I think they want probably like 4 in this class, and then because they brought in 3 more from the transfer portal. Um, Now they might want to leave some room for the portal, but I think 4 is kind of the number I've heard as far as how many offensive line, maybe a tackle, and then 2 centers, and then an interior guy. So I think that's kind of where they sit on the kind of sit on them as far as what they're looking for in this class at offensive line.
Rondarius Peterson inquiring about Josiah Knight. Apparently, he's a player that's in our backyard. What do you know, Michael?
Not a guy I know a ton about. To be honest, I know the name, but I don't really know a ton about him as far as a big time player. I think he's from Gadsden County, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Um, more so of a local guy. To my knowledge, he's committed to Cincinnati. I don't think FSU is offered, to my knowledge, yet. So nice player, fast, does need a technique and stuff like that will need to be finalized and fine tuned certainly when he gets to college, but not a guy that I've heard FSU heavily involved with, if that's what you're kind of alluding to. But that's kind of where we sit with Josiah.
So it's possible. I don't know if it's probable,
Yeah,
but it's possible that maybe KJ Kirkland will, you know, by week 6 can be a really good player for you. You're hoping it won't take that long. Corey and
right.
I were talking about this on the podcast about the concern at safety. And I'm like, do you want some guy to go out second half targeting or injury in the swamp and you're trying to hold on to making it to a playoff? And Corey's like, man, I'm more worried about the first half of the season. Like, can you really trust a true freshman? Could a guy like Conrad Hussey, Dustin wonders, Michael, do you think Conrad Hussey has the chops to come in the fall and be ready to contend for playing time at safety?
He's highly, highly talented, but he's coming in the summer. Now, if you ask me that question, if he came in the spring, I would say there's a more likelihood, because I've heard a lot of good things about KJ Kirkland. But I think the likelihood is KJ Kirkland would be the guy that you would lean on more so than Hussey. But I think Hussey is more dynamic and high end as far as ball hawking skills are crazy good. He's got ridiculous skill, but he is coming in the summer. That's a lot to. It's not impossible. We've seen it, and it can happen. But for me to predict it and say, "Oh, it for sure happened," that's asking a lot of a freshman. And that's kind of part of the reason they want a productive guy from the portal. But this guy is a freak. So he is incredible in pass coverage. That's what his forte is. He's very special. But you still got the game's faster in college. You got to learn what system you're in. You got to learn the checks. He's from St. Thomas, so he's highly developed, highly skilled. But the college level is a different animal, and he's got to adjust to the speed of what they're doing. But he certainly has the skill set. But does he have the discipline of playing? When things are going fast, everything's moving fast. Will the game slow down for him? That's what you kind of got to look at. Can he do it? Yes. Is it likely? It's going to be tough for. Um, it's tough for a true freshman in the summer. True freshman in the spring, yeah, I give it a pretty likely notion. But in the summer, that's tough. But this kid's really immensely talented, so it will be interesting. But I would lean towards no. As far as playing time, yeah, I think he'll play some, but the level of what I think fans want him to play, it's kind of different.
We have passed the bottom of the hour. Hit the thumbs up, everybody. Come on now.
There you go.
Um,
By
we've
the way, Scott
Todd,
June. By the way, just to get the Scott June's question there, Tom Malone committed to Ohio State, so he's done, Scott. So
oh,
that's no
did he?
FSU there. No Bono. Yeah, he's going to
Oh,
Ohio State.
oh, sweet, sweet,
Yeah,
sweet Taiwan.
let's get that out of
All
the
right.
way.
This question was asked at 5:49 p.m., which is 11 minutes before we even come to air. So if anyone's wondering, you guys went this long without talking about Destin Hill, you wrong. Do we know? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Michael knows either. Well, we'll ask Michael. It's his show. Alan wants to know. Do you know what shape Destin Hill is in?
I've heard he's in good shape, and I asked somebody that would know, that have seen him recently, um, that know him and know kind of his work ethic. He has been working, and now how good a shape. I mean, I didn't get into the specifics, but they just told me yes, he's doing a lot of stuff. He's in shape. He's ready. He's excited. I've heard a lot of people differ around him say how excited he is. By the way, shout out to my main man Sam Spiegelman.
Mm.
Nailed it, dude. He was on it from the start, and but I think Destin's ready to help them and other. But I also think he also knows that he's coming in, that he has to settle in and get comfortable and adjust to and adapt to everything's going on. Talking about 2 years removed, so he hasn't been hit. He could be all the shape he wants to be, but until he starts getting reps and physicality and getting hit, We're really not, and how quick he can pick up things. We're really not going to know, even if he's in good shape, how much of a factor he's going to be for this upcoming season. But as Sam has pointed out, and it kind of shocked me when Sam said it on our show, he said, "This is the most talented receiver I remember covering out of Louisiana, state of Louisiana." You think about all the players, receivers that are out of the state of Louisiana. That's a big boasting statement to make. So I do think he's immensely talented. So it's really going to depend on just what we see in the summer. Now, is it likely? I would say no. That's probably why they want a receiver from the portal so they can bring Dustin along the path they want him to, the speed they want to, not put too much pressure on him. But I knowing Destin, I know he's going to want to play really quick. He's going to get on the field early, and I think he's a guy that, yeah, if everything clicks in the summer, he could have a kind of a stuff that we saw kind of out of Kentron Portier last year, or Portier last year, where you saw him flashing a little bit, and maybe best case scenario, that's probably I think what you see out of Hill if he can get comfortable with everything.
Bill Ritter. I mean, we don't have to go into the specifics of this, but let's talk about linebacker, defensive end. I mean, I know you touched a little bit on the edge there. Just how much sort of focus will be put on linebacker, you think, here in the coming weeks as soon as they figure out receiver and safety? Not that they can't do all at the same time, but obviously some things are at the front burner.
Yeah, I think what they want is a young guy that is. I don't think like they have to be totally green where they haven't played at all. I mean, they would want somebody that does have that has played a little bit, but I think they want somebody with multiple years. I don't think getting a guy that is a top tier starter is likely, or is what FSU should look for, because you have three starters that you feel pretty good about. And then I think it just needs to be somebody that's really young and talented that has multiple years where he could come in there, back these guys up, and then the following year he could go battle for the starting job. Like, that's kind of the mindset of what I think FSU is kind of looking for in the linebacker. I do think it's going to heat up uh, both this week and next week. So I did think a visit is likely going to probably occur, because that's the next position that I've heard. But I don't think it's specifically that has to be an outside linebacker or an inside linebacker. I think they're just mainly seeing one that fits their system, and I think they're currently evaluating probably around 3 or 4 guys to see which guy is the one that we need to target and push for. But I think they're still figuring out those options. But I do think linebacker is a place where they do want to get involved with some guys. Yes, I will have some names, Trevor, probably next week, but they're still evaluating and discussing this thing and thinking what they're going to do, and who they're going to go after and who their targets is. Once they target, it's on. So there's a lot of background stuff. So I do think the linebacker is probably the third position you see that they'll be active with.
In terms of high school as well, you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely still uh, recruiting guys in high school. Certainly, I think Blake Nicholson is going to help them some with their depth. I think that's a guy that you don't have to put him in too crazy of situations, that he will be comfortable in there tackling space. He does stuff well, so I think he will help with the depth. So will Omar Graham. And then in high school, I think they're still looking for another one. Should be several guys coming up. Linebackers are going to officially visit FSU. I think Edwin Spillman's going to visit FSU. And I think there'll be a few others that they're looking for, at least one or two more in the high school ranks. So definitely not just all portal. It's going to be some high school guys.
Moving along, Markevius Harris wondering about Kylan Fox. Decision to come soon, do you think, Michael?
Yeah, he's visiting. From what I was told over the weekend, he is visiting this weekend coming up. He will be on campus, and then he's supposed to take a visit officially in June. So he will also visit FSU officially coming up. So I think it's close. I think he's close to doing it. I like where FSU sits, but UCF is also right there. But I think FSU's in a really good spot, just based on the intel I've gotten early on in this recruitment. They want him to be the second tight end along with Landon Thomas, who committed to FSU. And Landon's been certainly recruiting him, trying to get him on board. So I think Colin's a guy that, kind of views himself of the stuff that I think Johnny Wilson does. He thinks he can do some of the same things, and he likes what he does with Johnny. And so I think he feels like the fit is there, and I think he's close. And am I going to say he pops if he visits this weekend? He pops. I mean, it would not surprise me, but I'm not going to say for sure that he does it, but it would not shock me if he went ahead and did it, because I think he feels very comfortable with this offense. He also is from Valdosta, so he's good friends and close with. He knows Shaheem Bell well. He knows Tate Rodemaker well. He played on that team at Valdosta, so he knows those guys. So he's very familiar with the team. He loves what the offense looks like, and I think he just generally just feels a connection to the school at FSU. That I think that's why they're in the best spot.
Theophilus, I think. Any day one starters in this class so far, Michael?
Day one starters. Oh man.
Pull up the list here shortly, as quickly as I
Yeah.
can. As quickly as my little feet can run.
Yeah, let me peek at the. I off the top of my head, I'd say no, because you're talking about starters. Yeah, for a true freshman, that's one that's not likely to happen. Yeah, going down this list, these are really talented guys, but you're still talking about transformation over to your high school to college. I don't see anybody that just jumped out to me that says, "Hey, they're going to start like right away when they get there." It's like, no, it's going to be a process for them to start. I mean, I don't see that. Now, I will say the last one on there, maybe. I mean, maybe. That's probably your starter if I was going to pick one. But that could be your starter with Jake, the number one kicker in the country. But outside of that, all these other guys, I just think it takes such a dynamic change to when you get to college to win a starting job. Now, do I think several of these guys will get significant playing time? Absolutely. I think Landon Thomas will play a lot. I think Cameron Davis will play a lot. Certainly, Luke will learn the offense, but that's quarterback takes a while to get going. I think Twaski can give you a lot on special teams, so I think he could play a lot. Very high on McCoy. So these guys, I think, could play. So, but when you talk about that word starting, that's probably not likely.
What if you saw the name Chuck Lester on that list?
I might change my mind.
Logan wonders if you have any updates on Charles Lester.
Yeah, still look good. I feel really good about my pick, Logan, with FSU. I think he's going through this recruiting process and the visits. Certainly visited Colorado and all these other places, but I feel good about FSU being the top school for him. I feel very good about their position. I think he's going to decide this summer. He's going to officially visit FSU last, and I like where they sit. I like how they're recruiting him, and two, the thing that a lot of people don't put into factor with these kids is like FSU's also looking for leaders. Like it isn't just your skill set. Like they want guys that can lead in your locker room and or character that fit everything of what this team is built on. And I think a lot of these guys all have that qualification. Cam has it. Certainly Luke has it. And a lot of these guys, they want a natural leader in that locker room to motivate each other, to hold everyone accountable every single day. So I think Charles has that special ability to do that. He's a great leader. And I think certainly if they were able to pull him, he's a guy that I would think would come in there early. And so I'm not going to say the starting word, but I think he would have a very strong impact as a freshman.
Garrett has got a question about official visits when they visit, especially from out of state. Who pays for their flights, their lodging, their food, all that?
FSU or whatever school they're officially visiting. they official visits are paid for by the school. They're taken care of, whether it's the recruits driving over there, or they're flying, or lodging, or food wise. Certainly, FSU handles the bill for that stuff, so that's the school pays for that, Garrett.
DeQuan Kitchings. Do you think Braylon Staley will be a 5-star offensive lineman? I bet his cousin he wouldn't be. Why did Florida State not offer?
I couldn't really tell you. That's a new one to me, so I don't know much about.
Well, he's a receiver from South Carolina. I think somebody's brought him up before. Probably Daquan too. Daquan just doing what he's got to do to gas up this guy. Probably just jumping in from chat to chat.
Let me look it up.
Appreciate your hustle though. Let me see if I can pull it up here. It's a beautiful world, this internet. What would we do if we didn't have the internet, Michael? We just had to do like a call.
Oh no, we'd be in trouble.
About these guys, like, yeah, who knows? Apparently Clemson in the mix, Georgia in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, 4-star from South Carolina. You would think the in-state schools would have an advantage up, but he hasn't visited FSU, so really there's not much for me to say. I'm sure he's a very talented guy, but it doesn't sound like the interest is mutual as much as our guy wants it to be, because he's probably close with him, but I haven't heard anything with that name.
Here's an old school question. How many silent commits are there right now, Michael?
Well, they're silent for a reason, Lacey, so I can't really talk about if they were popular, but there's.
Do you think there are? Like, do you think there's guys that have told? I mean, like, not just, hey, coach, I'm going to be here, but like, coach, I will be there. I love you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
real.
I think
like,
there's several. I think there's several, but I'm not going to say how many or who they are. Yeah. But yeah, I think there's some guys.
See, I wonder if like Jalen Key commits to Alabama if they tell a kid to pop. You know, like one of these kids that like they got a silent on or something. Hey man, that'd be really good. We'll give you an extra $1,000 if you commit right now, so we can just like, keep our, our profile up. Joseph, man, just pounding away. We talked about it at the beginning of the show, not being condescending, but we don't know on Coleman, but Key, we're thinking Friday, right, Michael?
Right. We don't have a time. Coleman could happen like once he gets back home a few days after his Ole Miss visit. I think he visited there Tuesday and Wednesday, and then he'll probably get back home, and then he might take a Louisville visit, or he might just make a decision the following week. But Key, we feel pretty confident it's going to be this weekend.
Sean Noles wants to know, how are we looking for JoJo Trader?
Right, very much in that. It still is a Miami FSU battle. I think he's going to officially visit both of those teams. I think those teams are solidly ahead of the other schools. I have not heard anybody except for FSU and Miami there. I think the intriguing part is going to be what the season holds. I know while it shows that Miami is the overwhelming favorite in the RPM, I think it's much closer than that. I think it's a 50-50 battle, maybe slightly one way or the other. Miami or Florida State depends on what day, but I definitely think FSU is very much in that one with Miami. Miami and FSU are the teams I've heard the most, and I think official visits are really going to kind of tell something as far as this recruitment goes. But certainly Miami's done a great job recruiting him, selling him on staying home and helping build their wide receiver room. In FSU, on the other hand, has focused more on what their offense is, what their product is on the field, and winning and being part of a winning culture. And they both sold their visions really good. But I think that it's going to come down to the official visits.
Kenny Hayden. Hey guys, question I have is, do you think when it comes to recruiting that there are times when the coaching staff is being too picky?
I mean, yeah, it's a matter of perspective. I do feel sometimes, there's a kid that I like, and just like your mind's set on it. You're like, man, be a little bit too picky because this is the guy that feel. But I think for the most part, Kenny, they've done, and I'm not going to argue against these guys based on what the product I've seen as far as their eye evaluations of guys. Like their evaluations had been really good. That doesn't mean I've given them a pass. Just means I give them a little credence and leeway But yeah, there's times they do get a little picky when it comes to you know certain guys. But at the same time, these guys' jobs are on the line. No matter what school you're at, that you got to make sure you get it right. Because if you start getting right, it can quickly wrong. Quickly can turn around. So I think with what they have now, I think they have to be picky because they need to be picky of they got to make sure they get the right guys at these certain spots. They knew they need to get certain right guys for you know the uh, the defensive line when they added Fiskey and they added Daryl Jackson. It's like we got to get the right guys to really help out, and then also just certain positions like safety, you got to make sure you got to be picky and want the guy. You can't just take the first safety that jumps out there. It's like, hey, I'm available. It's like, no, it has to be the best. So I think when it comes to the portal, I don't mind the pickiness, Kenny, but I think sometimes with high school, I think it is a little bit too picky as far as trying to get somebody even better than what they're already recruiting.
I'm trying to think when it comes to the portal, though, they've pretty much, I mean, ironically, the only guy they were picky about was maybe Daryl Jackson because they didn't get him the
Yep.
first time around, but then they were
Right.
able to get him the next time around. But otherwise, I mean, the kid, like the Miles Frazier kid that went to LSU, like they wanted him, like they weren't like slow
Right.
playing him. They did go after him, they just couldn't land him. But like usually when they target in on somebody, they seemingly follow through. But maybe this is more of a high school kind of
If it's a high
approach.
school thing, I agree with him. But if it's a portal thing, no. I think you have to be picky in the portal because there's a lot more that you have to study that you don't know about these guys that you got to find out if this is going to work. So these high school kids you've been recruiting probably for 2 years. So it's a little different. So if you're talking about high school, I agree with you, Kenny. But portal, I think they've done a really good job.
Let's get it, Mon. What's going on with linebackers and defensive tackle recruiting, Michael?
Needs to be better. That's what's going on. Certainly, everyone's seen the hot board, and somebody asked me yesterday, so I'm a man of my word. Yes, the defensive tackle hot board is up on Warchant. It's on our PRB. If you check the thread, we cover all the guys. DeAndre Robinson, Artavius Jones out of Bluntstown, and also Alex January, who also visited FSU, is going to officially visit. He's a 4-star defensive tackle. All those guys are the main guys in there. So those are the main focus. I think they're all going to officially visit FSU. I don't think anything's going to happen until they do the official visit. Yes, there's still some work to do with those. So I want to be a man of my word and tell you guys I would break it down. Those are the main guys. Now, as far as is linebacker, just has to be better. They need more top tier profile guys. You certainly need you need a guy like the Patterson kid out of Miami, Saquon Patterson. That's certainly one you need. There's certainly several guys that they're after that 4-star Edwin Spillman. That's going to be a tough pull away from Tennessee, but there's a lot of guys in there, so there's certainly work to do. And I definitely you want to see an upstick of what you're seeing so far, but they're on it, and we'll see what Shannon could do. I love what they're doing with the linebackers when they're there, but yes, I agree that the defensive tackle and linebacker recruiting could use a nice little jolt as far as getting a top guy in this class for that position.
Yeah, I guess Matthew Thomas was a linebacker when he
Yep.
was recruited, right?
Yep.
Like you got to go back to Matthew Thomas, and then I guess Eddie Goldman was like what he was 12,
Yeah,
2012.
I just think
It's
when you
been a
look
while
at
since like Florida State's got like one of those like 5-star absolute, you know.
right,
You don't want to
and
say
I
can't
think
miss because Matthew Thomas didn't maybe work out the best you could, but yeah, that just even some of these names that we're looking at are not necessarily like top 100 guys.
right, and I think it's a valid question to
Although
ask too.
Patterson is.
It's a valid question to ask because when you look at all the other positions, tight end just got a 5-star guy in Landon Thomas. Running back, you got a top back in Cam. You obviously got a top quarterback. Receiver Ron's killing it. He's got 3 dudes that are big time. Even last year, he got a 5-star. So yeah, this year's class, there's not a guy in there at linebacker or defensive tackle that you're like, hey, and especially with how FSU's performing. So they have to, they pick it up a little bit, but at the same time, we know what Odell can do, recruiting wise. So, yeah, they're going to get guys on campus. They're going to get somebody, and with Coach Shannon, I think it's just about staying true to the process, and certainly both of those positions need to be better, and that's the best way I can answer
Let's go,
it.
James B. My
Oh,
goodness.
God.
What? What?
Wow. Wow.
$200 in the jar, courtesy of James B. He's on this granite pillar because he's a pillar, and he's got a tomahawk by his name because he's been at 2 different officially sanctioned Warchant events. $200. He just wants to say, "Great show, Michael." That's all he wants to say. He just wants to say it's a great show.
Yeah, I mean, James, I greatly appreciate it, man. You're awesome. We appreciate it. I know I speak for Aslan. I'm gonna say we humbly thank you for this. And it's a very, very, very nice gesture. We appreciate it. I just saw Wesley Todd's comment in there about me camping out. Yeah, I will be camped out on Friday when or Thursday when Destin Hill gets there. I will be there. Matt will be there. We will be there. If he's comes towards us, we'll be ready. So, um, by the way, Matt's done a great job. I say that every week, but killer job, fantastic job, Matt done. Matt's done. Certainly, it's been long weekends being out there when you're at Moore. So he's really done a phenomenal job. He's actually doing this chat summary. So really want to just give him a shout out. But yes, Wes, we will be out there, and we'll be ready whenever Destin Hill arrives.
All right, couple more.
Which by the way, if you look at the student directory, his name in there is Destin Payson. So I don't know if he's switching it back now.
Time's a flat circle, kids. Optimus Climb, Michael, you were really high on Vandrevis Jacobs last cycle. You were proven right in the spring. Which commit are you highest on at wide receiver in this coming class?
It's a good question. I like them all. I
No, you
really
can't
do.
say that. Can't say
But
that.
I'm not gonna say that. Pull it up, man. Let's pull that thing up. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna go
All right, so what
with
do we
the
got?
kind of.
We got Tawaski Abrams, Lawayne McCoy, B.J. Gibson, Camden Fryer.
I'm gonna go with the guy that people don't talk about enough, Tawaski Abrams, because I love
Oh,
speed, and this kid is the epitome of speed. He is ridiculously fast. Like he is special. He's unique. I mean, he's a guy that you can use in a lot of different ways. Dre's fast, but this kid's even faster. This kid has some serious wheels, and I love what he is in space when he gets the ball. He does a lot of different things, and so that's going to be my pick if I was picking somebody right now. Now maybe I'll change. I have a right to change my opinion later, but I would say Tawaski Abrams for me right now. I mean, he just does a lot of explosive things in space that I think is going to resonate, when he gets to FSU, both in special teams or in in the college ranks because of his vision. He sees stuff, and then that speed, his ability to pull away from people is just very special.
Yeah, I don't know. When's Blake Nicholson? June?
Yeah, it'll be. I think he told us May, so
Oh,
it'll
okay.
be late May. So May, June. Yeah.
All right. Couple more questions as we bail
Okay.
out here. Smogden 1980. Do you think? I'm going to guess that he means Cam. Do you
Yeah.
think Cam or Luke will get their 5th star?
I would lean more towards Luke being like, because really the on 3 group has really taken a liking to Luke a lot. He jumped way, way, way up there. So I think Luke is up there, and I think Luke is a guy that 50-50 chance for me that he makes that 5-star status because he's not far off. We know the quarterback is certainly going to have the ball in his hands all the time, so he's going to have a chance to go out there and show us stuff. And he does what he did last year. I have no doubts that Luke is going to have a really good shot to be in that 5-star status. So I do think it can happen. Obviously, that's up to um, that's up to the on 3 guys, but I think he's definitely has a good shot. Out of the two, I would pick Luke to get that 5-star status. And if somebody wanted me to make a bold prediction, yeah, I think he's going to get a 5-star status eventually, whether it's later in the year or not. But I just think with his skill set and the way he prepares, and certainly he's going to be at Elite 11. So I think he's going to have a chance to also build more excitement about his game. And I think certainly if he does what he did last year, I think he's going to have a good shot of being a 5-star.
All right. We did it. We did it, Michael. Another show in
Boom.
the books. This is just the start of what's going to be a pretty busy, hectic, crazy week for you, though, I assume, right? Where are you
Absolutely.
in, Matt? Are you
Yeah.
ready?
Yeah. We're busy. We have visitors on campus. I've told you about, tight end Kylan Fox, tight end Landon Thomas are expected to be on campus at FSU. They also have an official visitor for the 2023 class, a safety slash, I want to say safety slash linebacker guy that's coming in this weekend. His name is Aslan Barker. Um, he's a guy that's I want to say is out of Duncanville. Or no, he's out of He's
2023?
out of JUCO, Iowa Western, JUCO Iowa Western. So
Okay.
he's a guy that's officially visiting this weekend. FSU actually, people wondering how that started. FSU actually went out there to evaluate him in person at Iowa Western. Loved what they saw. They studied this film and they're like, man, we got to get you in for an official visit. I've heard there's some buzz picking up with him, so FSU might not be the only team that gets in there and gets an official visit, but he's a guy that maybe a late add to this 2023 class that FSU seems to take a liking to.
6'3", 195. Do you think more defensive back or more linebacker?
I think he's safety right now, but he could definitely grow into a linebacker. But I think what they see at linebackers, the instincts and the explosibility to make plays like the one we just saw there as far as tackling. But I think his more natural place is safety, where he's a very productive cover guy in coverage as far as when the ball's in the air, he knows where to go, where to be, and I think that's a guy that I think that's part of too the reason they're bringing in. We talk about safety in the portal. This is a guy that I think probably feel like, hey, this guy can help us. So they're continually to address important areas of. That's why I say the safety position is the most important thing, and I think this is kind of further evidence of that. That hey, we saw a guy we like, bam, get him on official visit. Let's see if we can close it down and get this guy in the class. So I think, and this is the only remaining guy that I've heard in the 2023 class. So we'll see how it goes. And you would think FSU has a good shot with how the relationship's been building, but we'll get up with him and we'll see what he has to say after this visit.
All right, that is a wrap. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you to our guy, James B. Pillar, for the $200 American. That was
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah.
Hit the thumbs up if you don't feel like giving us $200. We'll take that as a substitute. We certainly would appreciate it. Thanks to our guy Josiah in the back for screening some of the questions, letting you folks know where in the show you can listen to some of these answers. We'll have some timestamps later on here if you're watching the replay, which you can watch over on warchant.com. And for Michael, I'm Aslan. Thanks for watching, Michael. Let's do this again sometime soon.
You got it, man. Look forward to it, and I will jump on the PRB tonight. I'll answer all your questions. I possibly could have another portal update late tonight or early tomorrow. And then I'll address the latest of what's going on with Jalen Key, Keon Coleman, and any other guys that I think could be visiting, soon. So I will probably do that either late tonight or tomorrow.
All right. He's Michael. I'm Aslan. Thanks for watching this edition of the Warchant.com recruiting chat. Stay connected to Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.